Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Samantha Hildebrandt. I am a type 1 diabetic as of February 18th, 2021. And today I want to talk about what it's like to be diagnosed as an adult. So before I dive into type 1 diabetes as a diagnosis, as an adult, I do have my glucose over here. If you don't know what a glucose is, it basically shows your blood sugar readings in a color, which is super helpful. For example, I turned on this video and saw that it was red and I was like, oh gosh, let me check my blood sugar. And I'm currently sitting at 83, but I'm very steady at 83 right now. So I'm not going to eat any sugar. We're just gonna watch that closely. But a glucose is super helpful when you're like busy running around and then, you see that color and you're like, oh wait, hold on, like freeze everybody, let me check my blood sugar. Or green means like you're in range, and then a purple, like bluish color is your high. So it's really helpful, I feel like, to just have somewhere in your household. It's also super, super helpful for parents who have children with type 1 diabetes, because same thing, like obviously parents are not the ones living with the disease. So if they have something like a glucose in their house, they can easily check on their kid without actually like knowing the exact blood sugar number. So just wanted to throw that out there because I see it right now in the screen and I feel like it's important to talk about. Glucose did not sponsor this video by any means. I just really love my glucose. So I wanted to share that with you. And I feel like it's always red in my videos. So that's weird, but we're at 83 guys and we're sitting at 83. So I think we're good. But I wanted to dive into what it's like to be diagnosed as an adult, because there's a lot of misconceptions out there about type 1 diabetes and what it's like to be diagnosed and who is diagnosed and what age you're diagnosed and everything like that. I mean, I meet people every single day that just assume I got it when I was a child, and I have to explain to them that actually like 50% of people who are diagnosed as adults. And so there's a lot of education around that still that needs to be out there in the world. And it's unfortunate because most people think it comes to kids. Like when you hear type 1 diabetes, you're like, oh, right, juvenile diabetes, you get it when you're 5 years old and that's that, but that's actually not the case. Some kids do, absolutely. Like some kids get it and that's that. But then I've been hearing, unfortunately, more and more people getting it as adults lately. And it is what it is. But I want to talk more about how it's affected my life, because I was diagnosed at age 29. And as you can imagine, I've lived 29 years of my life without type 1 diabetes, 29 years of being able to eat whatever I want, whenever I want, however I want. And then all of a sudden getting a life-changing diagnosis at age 29 and having to completely change my life, completely change my day-to-day eating style, and really just completely change how I now manage my life. And so let's get into that. For starters, I want to mention I have actually nobody in my family that has type 1 diabetes. I am the sole lucky person who was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. However, we do have autoimmune conditions in my family. So my dad's side actually has a lot of autoimmune related conditions, especially with thyroid. So my cousin has hypothyroidism, my grandma and my uncle all have thyroid issues. And when I was growing up, I thought, oh, hey, that's such an easy disease to have. All I have to do is pop a pill every day and I'm good. That's, unfortunately, I feel like it led to me getting type 1 diabetes as well, because a lot of people who have type 1 diabetes also have hypothyroidism. And so I feel like the autoimmune condition situation they bounce off each other, right? You have one, then you get another, and they just keep happening and there's nothing you can do about it. That's the unfortunate thing about autoimmune, is you literally can't do anything about it. And so that's how kind of my story started. I was in high school when I was diagnosed with hypothyroidism, And to be honest, I was diagnosed because I wasn't getting a regular period. That was the only reason. I didn't have any other symptoms. They just thought, okay, that's kind of weird that it's not regular when you're in high school. So they tested it for thyroid issues and it came back positive for hypothyroidism. And they put me on Synthroid, and that's that. Like, I never had any other issues with my hypothyroidism. And then bring me to 2021, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. If you don't know my diagnosis story, I highly recommend listening to it. I will include it right here, and I also will include it below in the comment link so you can watch that, because it's kind of a crazy story and it's worth telling. So, oh look, sorry, my glucose changed a little bit. It's a little bit more yellow color because I'm 88 now, so it's going up, so we're good. Anyway, sorry, I digress. I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes February 18th of 2021. And funny enough, I know you, please go watch that video because I really describe my symptoms, all that. But it's funny to me because I was actually in Puerto Rico a couple days before I went to the hospital for my diagnosis, and I was chugging pina coladas, you guys, like legitimately chugging them. And I had probably like several per day. And now that I look back, it does just make me laugh because there's so much sugar in pina coladas, and who knew, like my blood sugar was probably so high. I mean, I felt like crap while I was there. So yes, it was high, but I didn't know that at the time, obviously, because once again, I've lived 29 years of my life without type 1 diabetes. I honestly at the time didn't know much about type 1 diabetes. I knew one girl from my high school who had it, but once again, like we weren't super close, so I didn't know I knew she had it, but like what that meant, I don't know. And so when I was diagnosed, it was quite the life change. I went to the hospital, and the doctors and the nurses and the endocrinologists and the diabetes educators were all explaining everything to me, and I was just so starstruck. Like I was so lost and confused, and they're talking to you and telling you about all these things you're gonna have to do, but in that moment I don't think you really realize like how much your life is going to change, right? Like you hear all these things, but you're like, okay, well, like I'll be fine. At least that's what I thought. Like I was like, I'll be okay, like I'll be fine. And especially maybe because I was relating it to hypothyroidism, I was like, okay, like hypothyroidism's easy, type 1 diabetes might be a little bit harder, but like I'll be okay. And they did scare me a little bit. Like the diabetes educator told me I couldn't get pregnant with type 1, and that's a whole thing, guys. Just go listen to my diagnosis story. But anyway, yes, so like there were some things that did scare me, but overall I'm like, how hard can this disease be, right? Well, the first year of my diagnosis, it was so tough. I don't even know how I got through it. When I look back, I'm like, I don't even know how I did that. Like, I really don't, because it was so difficult. Going 29 years of my life, literally eating anything I wanted. I mean, I'm talking anything I wanted. Like, I was not the healthiest person before. And so I literally would eat. My husband was making fun of me the other day because I used to eat so many pretzels a day, because that was my like go-to snack. I love pretzels so much, and I would just eat so many pretzels, and it just makes me laugh now because, well, I'm also gluten-free now, but it makes me laugh because I'm like, oh my gosh, pretzels like are not the best option for a type 1 diabetic for a snack. And so, I mean, because there's no nutrients in it basically, but it's just funny because I literally would eat anything I want. I mean, I loved to eat. I loved to go out to eat. I loved to do all of that. And when I was diagnosed, that was obviously just a huge change. So luckily, obviously, I can still eat anything I want now, but I can't do it freely anymore. And if you are a type 1 diabetic, you totally understand what I mean by that. And if you're not a type 1 diabetic, you don't understand, because going from being able to eat whenever you want, whatever you want, how much ever you want, and not having to worry about it to having to worry about it is, I don't even know the word. It's just like, it's heartbreaking, honestly. It's very heartbreaking, and it's hard to do. It's hard to go from one extreme to the next. It's so tough. And Of course, if you don't live with type 1 diabetes, you just don't understand, and you honestly never will, because you don't have to deal with this. But I always joke that I'm like, oh, one day I just want, my entire family, all my friends to do what I have to do. Obviously not give themselves insulin, but like, okay, we'll act it out. Like, okay, everyone, I'm taking my insulin, you're taking yours, and now you have to wait 15, 20 minutes to eat your food. Like, my friends and my family would have a freaking heart attack if they had to do that. Like, legitimately, they would freak out. And so some days I'm like, you want to know what it's like to live with type 1 diabetes? Like, let's go. I will tell you exactly what it's like. And then, for example, if like my family decided to eat more than they thought they were going to eat, well, guess what? I'd be like, family member, your blood sugar is going up. Now you have to take more insulin. You have to go for a walk. You have to go do all this exercise to bring it back down. Your mental health is now shot because all you're worried about is your high blood sugar. Like, there is no more free eating. And I think that was the hardest part for me personally, because I was a big snacker before. And like, now I'm sure you guys know, like, snacking, depending on what you're snacking on, it can be really difficult. If you're not snacking on anything healthy per se, you're screwed. Like, it doesn't matter how much insulin you take, like, your blood sugar is going to go up. It just is, because that's just how it works. Like, unfortunately, our pancreases don't work, and the outside insulin just doesn't handle it the way we need it to be handled. And so that was definitely the hardest part for me, is like not being able to freely eat. And when I was first diagnosed, all I did, I'm not even kidding, all I did was search Google, search Amazon to find things that I could freely eat. I couldn't get past the fact that I had to take insulin for like everything I ate. I really wanted to find food options that I could eat freely. It was super important for me to do that. I think just because the transition was so difficult that I was like, I'm going to do every possible search I can. And I would find so many keto products and so many things like that I could just eat, because that was super important to me to be normal again and just be able to eat whatever I wanted. And so I ordered so many keto products on Amazon just to try. I went to the store and was like, okay, I'm going to eat these keto products or low carb products or no carb products or whatever it was, just so I could feel normal again. And I still kind of have that mental thing now that I snack on things that I know won't spike me and even without taking insulin. And it really did take me a while to get over that. I mean, I still am not fully over it, I would say. I still struggle with that. I mean, I eat cheese so much as a snack because I just want to, like, when you're like hungry and you just want to eat something, like, I don't want to wait 20 minutes when I'm hungry to eat something, because I have to wait for my insulin to kick in. And then I have to think about, oh, how do I pair this so my blood sugar doesn't spike? It's like, it's so freaking frustrating. So I always eat cheese because I'm like, I can just eat that and not have to take insulin and not have to worry about me spiking. And I know that's not even the case for all diabetics, because the fat, somebody who eats cheese might still have to take insulin because of the fat. I personally think I'm just lucky in that case, because I still think I'm in like sort of a honeymoon phase where I can eat cheese and it doesn't affect me at all. And so, and I know a lot of people have like their go-to free food, as we call it, where we can eat whatever we want and not have to take insulin. Like, we all know what that is for us, like whether it's a handful of nuts or pickles or whatever it is, we all have that like one snack that we can go to that we don't have to take insulin for. And it's just really frustrating because I don't want to be eating cheese like constantly. Like, cheese is fattening. I don't need to be eating cheese constantly. Like, I really don't. It's a lot of dairy. It's a lot of fat. Yeah, I guess it's a better option than like me eating a cookie, but like, yeah, I don't want to be focusing on eating cheese when I'm hungry. I need to accept the fact that I'm just going to need to take insulin and wait 20 minutes, and I'm going to have to eat a healthy, balanced meal as my snack. But that was really, really hard for me when I was first diagnosed. I think the other really hard part is figuring out the new you when you're diagnosed. And some people may disagree with this. I'm not sure. So this is just my opinion, but I lived 29 years of my life as a certain someone, right? Like, I was this person who ate whatever she wanted. She drank beer. She had fun with her friends. Me and my husband would go out to eat all the time, like several times a week. That was me. And then I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and a lot of that got a lot harder. And to me, now certain things that I used to enjoy doing, I don't enjoy anymore because of the situation I'm currently in. So for an example, I used to love going out to dinner, like love it. Like it was our activity. That's what we did for fun. That's what me and my husband did for fun. And now it is not like that for me anymore. One, because of type 1 diabetes. Two, because I'm also now gluten-free, which is also a new autoimmune condition that I got after type 1. I got it a year after. And now I go out to eat and I'm just stressed. I'm stressed about where we're gonna go. I'm stressed about if there's gonna be healthy options for me. I'm stressed about if there's going to be gluten-free options. I'm just like stressed all the time. And it never used to be like that. I used to just go to any restaurant I wanted and I would eat something there. That was it, literally. And now that's not the case. And so we do eat at home a lot more than we ever have before because of me. And I do feel bad because my husband so loves to go out to eat, but he has no problems. So he can freely go out to eat and get whatever he wants where I cannot. And so when we do go out to eat, we do usually pick like healthier options, places that are 100% gluten-free, or we have very go-to places now where before we didn't even plan that out. We would just show up somewhere and we'd eat. Now we literally have to plan it out. I have to look up the menu before. I have to do all these things. And that's not always the case. Like obviously I can usually find something at some restaurant, but it just stresses me out, right? Like it's not as much fun as it used to be. And so little things like that also, I think is just such a huge change when you get diagnosed with type 1 diabetes as an adult, because I am so used to living my life freely, just like carefree, how I want, and all these things. And now I can't do that. It's almost like, and this is extreme, of course, but it's almost like a prison sentence, like a little bit, if you know what I mean. Like I can't do the things I used to be able to do. And it breaks my heart a lot of the time because it upsets me. And I have no choice. My husband and I talk about this a lot too, where I get upset a lot at these situations. And it's because I don't have a choice. I didn't make this choice for myself, right? Like if I decided to do it and I wanted to be super healthy and go gluten-free by choice, then that would be fine. I would probably be a lot happier and it would be a lot easier for me to make those decisions. Now, I didn't make any of those choices. I did not choose to have type 1 and I did not choose to be gluten-free. And so it mentally is taxing on me because all I want to do is be back where I was 3 years ago when I didn't have type 1 diabetes. Mental health is like a huge part of people who are diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, unfortunately. I don't know the exact number, but I do think it's like at least half, 50% of people have some mental health issues because of type 1 diabetes and the pain that it gives us in our lives. And I know this all sounds like super extreme, but I know it is true. And so there are a lot of you who feel the same way I do about certain things when it comes to type 1, how it's unfair, it's frustrating, it's a pain in the butt. It's not fun by any means. It's challenging. And I think it makes it even more challenging because nobody knows what it is. If you're not a type 1 diabetic, nobody understands. Nobody gets it. And that's also super frustrating. And so I know mental health is such a huge aspect of it. So I wanted to bring this part up because I think it is super important, especially since I have lived most of my life without type 1 diabetes. And now I'm still trying to navigate this new life of mine, trying to figure out the new me. Who am I? What do I like to do? I'm still trying to figure all of that out. I used to be a huge beer drinker. And so this is where the gluten-free thing comes in. So to give you an idea, like I only drank beer before. I would have a glass of wine occasionally with my friends, like on girls' nights, but I was a beer person. I drank beer. That's all I drank. Now I can't drink beer because I am gluten-free. And yes, there are gluten-free beers out there, but guess what? They are high in carb. And so if I drink a gluten-free beer, my blood sugar is going straight up. And so another situation that I used to have so much fun with friends, like going to a brewery and getting a beer, and it was fun and carefree and all that. Now it's not. now it's not. I can't go to a brewery anymore and have a beer. And even if I'm lucky enough that they have a gluten-free beer, then I have to worry about my blood sugar not spiking. And you guys probably know with liquids, insulin doesn't work that well. It just doesn't. It doesn't cover liquid carbs. I swear it doesn't. And so that's tough. Once again, I'm like, okay, well, then I'm gonna have to throw some food in there, a balanced meal, just to figure all of that out. And it's like the most frustrating thing ever. And when you try to explain this to people who don't have type 1 diabetes, they just think you're complaining. Do you guys feel me? Like, everyone's like, oh, you're fine, you're good, like, oh. And I'm like, no, you guys have no idea. Like, I am not complaining. This is a real life scenario that's happening to me. Like, this is not me being over exaggerating or anything like that. Like, this is true. This is true life for me. It is a constant battle with type 1 diabetes, constant battle with gluten-free. It's just a constant battle. And you all know how that works. And so type 1 diabetes is such a huge change. Like, I feel like there needs to be more, I feel like there just needs to be more information out there in the world about it. So people who don't have type 1 start to understand how big of an issue it is, how serious of an issue it really, really is. And yes, don't get me wrong, like type 1s can do everything that a normal person can do. We can eat whatever we want. We can do any activity that we want that other people can do. The only thing we can't do right now is join the army. So that's the only thing that we cannot do. I just think people need to know how tough it is. Like, when we say things, we're not exaggerating. This is truly how it works, unfortunately. I wish I was exaggerating. I wish I was exaggerating, you guys, but I am not. This is just how it goes. And so more people need to understand that that is just how life with type 1 diabetes is. But this was actually not supposed to be a video about me complaining about type 1 diabetes, but that just seems to what happened there. But I also wanted to mention the good things of type 1 diabetes that came from my experiences being diagnosed as an adult. So up until age 29, I did not eat very healthy. I wasn't necessarily unhealthy by any means, but I didn't really understand what a nutritional label was. I didn't understand anything about the food pyramid. I never cared about that before because I didn't have to. But then I turned 29, I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and not only did my life change in a very difficult way, but it also changed in a very positive way. So now I am learning so much about nutrition. I am learning so much about health and food and what matters and like what I should be eating versus what I shouldn't be eating. And that just came naturally with being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So I kind of just like figured this stuff out. I'm not a nutritionist, a dietitian, nothing like that, but I do my own research because I want to be healthy now. I have learned that certain things that I was eating before are not healthy and shouldn't be eaten by anybody, let alone type 1 diabetics, but anybody. Thank God for social media these days too, because there's so many active people out there like sharing. They go to the grocery store and they hold up, the product and they're like, look what's in this. Like, it's not good for you. Stop eating it. Or there's this guy who always shares the products that like don't ever disintegrate. He shared one the other day of like the ice cream cone that literally like it will stay an ice cream cone for 3 years. Like, that is disgusting. So thank God for those people on social media too that are educating me so I can learn what's healthy for me and what's not healthy for me. So that is one thing that type 1 diabetes has brought me, is I have learned so much about nutrition and health and truly how to be healthy and what's important for me. And that makes me really happy because when I look back at my old life, I'm like, yikes, the things I was eating, it's pretty gross actually. And so I'm glad that type 1 diabetes has brought me to this new health, nutrition aspect of my life, because I never looked at my life like that before. But now I do try to focus on eating balanced meals, eating healthy options, eating things that will help me and fuel me and not make me tired throughout the day. And so I'm really happy about that with type 1 diabetes. It really has brought me the health side of things, which is funny because it's like, oh, you're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, you're not really healthy anymore. But I ironically am more healthy because I'm eating way better than I ever have before. And the second thing that type 1 diabetes has brought me is friendship. So I have met some of the coolest people through the type 1 diabetes community. Everyone who is diagnosed with type 1 diabetes is super humble because it's just such a terrible disease that all of us are now humble. Like, we all really respect life, and we respect food, and we respect each other. And we understand now when we meet somebody who has an autoimmune condition, even if it's not type 1, like even if it's another one, we understand what that's like, and we treat them with respect, and we learn about it, and we care. And people with type 1 diabetes are so awesome. Don't you agree? I mean, like, everyone that I have met that has type 1 diabetes, it's like immediately my best friend. Because one, they understand what I'm going through, of course. But two, they're so kind. Every single person is so kind. And it's great. And so I've been to an adult type 1 diabetes camp, and I've met so many people, and I've made so many new friends. I still stay in contact with so many of them. I went and got coffee with one of the other ones, or one of my new type 1 diabetes friends the other day. She's also pregnant, and so we're going to go on hikes together with our kids when they're born. And so little things like that, it's like, it's so great because you make so many new friends that actually understand where you're coming from, which is super crucial in type 1 diabetes. Like, building that community is so important. Of, you know, if you're having a bad type 1 diabetes day, your family member probably won't understand what you're going through, but this person with type 1 diabetes will. And so you can always go to them to explain what's happening, and you both can yell and get frustrated, we hate type 1 diabetes, and move on, where somebody in your family might just be like, you're fine, like, get over it. And we all need that community member that has type 1 that understands what we're going through, that we can kind of complain to, you know what I mean? And like, just have somebody listen to us that gets it. And so the community of type 1 diabetes is just, it's so great. And I also was a camp counselor at a kids camp, which was the most rewarding thing I think I've ever done in my life. If you haven't done that yet, I highly recommend doing it. I went for 3 days, and it was the hardest 3 days of my life. I have type 1 diabetes, and it was the hardest 3 days of my life caring for somebody else that has type 1 diabetes. I mean, especially kids, it's like their blood sugars are all over the place, and oh my goodness, it's like, it's taxing. And so my heart goes out to all the parents that have kids that have type 1 diabetes, because holy moly, I don't even understand how you guys stay awake until nighttime. I was so tired by the end of the 3 days. I was like, wow. And I know what type 1 diabetes is. I live with it myself, and I was so exhausted trying to figure out their blood sugar situations. And so anyway, my point is, join a community, find friends, because it makes such a difference when you're diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. So being diagnosed as an adult is quite the change. It's a frustrating change. It's a challenging change. It's a change that will take you a while to accept. I know some people who have had type 1 diabetes for 20 years that still haven't fully accepted it. I've only had type 1 diabetes for 3 years, and I surely have not fully accepted it. There are days that are super hard for me to mentally get over the fact that I live with this disease and it's not going away, and I have to accept it, right? Like, that's the only option that I have. But it's hard sometimes. It's hard when you're with a group of friends that nobody has it and they don't get it. You know, maybe your blood sugar's high and you have to go walk around the block. They don't get it. They don't get why you're doing that. They don't get why you're leaving the party to go. Like, it's such a mentally taxing disease, and it's frustrating. But the good news is, good things can come out of it. A lot of good things can come out of it. You just have to put in the effort to make those good things come out of it. You can live your whole life being upset that you now have this autoimmune disease that is a 24-hour autoimmune disease, and you can be really upset about that. Or you can choose to look at the positive side of type 1 diabetes and run that way. Now, it's okay if there are days where you're like, screw this, I'm laying in bed all day, I hate this disease. That's fine, right? Like, that happens. We all deserve those days, if I'm being honest. We totally do. Because some days our blood sugars just don't want to work for us, no matter how hard we try. But most days should be the positive side. Most days you should be happy. Most days you should be excited. Most days you should be thriving with this disease. And once again, I know that's not easy. It's very difficult, but it all really is a mental change in your head. It's a mental change. And then of course there's lifestyle things you can do to make it easier for you, like eating balanced meals, for example. Like that will make your diabetes situation a lot better, in my opinion. And so those are things you can do. But really, I just wanted to say, it's hard. If you're newly diagnosed, it is so hard. And I am so sorry that this has happened to you, but don't worry, you'll be okay. You'll be okay. Reach out to me, reach out to all those other people on social media that have type 1 diabetes, make some friends, go to camp, adult camp, kids camp, do all the things, find your local type 1 diabetes community, because there is one in every city. Go make connections, make friends. Everything will be okay. Reach out to me if you have any questions, comment below. Reach out to me on Instagram at type1.tribe. I'll talk to you guys next week in the next episode. Bye. I just recently received a package in the mail from Good Journey Donuts. It is a low carb, low sugar, gluten-free donut. And as you guys know, I am gluten-free these days, and I love a good low sugar product. And so they have dark chocolate flavor, horchata flavor. They're both really good. I've had both flavors, and I'll show you the horchata one here. Absolutely amazing. If you want to try these, head over to their website. It's goodjourneydonuts.com. And if you want free shipping, which who doesn't love free shipping, type in type 1 tribe and that will apply that for you. So go try these, order some. They're super, super delicious.